So I'm Matt Jamie, the founder of Bourbon Barrel Foods. I'm going to talk to you about our soy sauce lineup today. We still have our original soy sauce. It's still the only microbrewed soy sauce in the U.S. This is our Bluegrass Soy Sauce. Non-GMO Kentucky-grown soybeans, soft red winter wheat, limestone-filtered Kentucky spring water, aged in a bourbon barrel for 12 months. Pressed, filtered, bottled, all right here in Louisville, Kentucky in Butchertown. We have one of our newer products, a double fermented soy sauce. This is our Bluegrass Soy Sauce with an additional fermentation and 6 months of aging. So vastly different products, different viscosities, different textures, different flavor profiles. You're going to get a lot of chocolate, some espresso in this one. We also have a smoked soy sauce now. This is our Bluegrass Soy Sauce smoked with bourbon barrel staves. It's in a smaller bottle with a control dropper top, just like a tincture or a bitters, because it's a really intense flavor. You don't need that much of it. My favorite thing to use this on is oysters. Last item in the soy sauce lineup is our Ponzu. So in my travels to Japan, I noticed a lot of soy sauce brewers had items like this. This Ponzu is a Kentucky riff on a Japanese favorite. They typically will use uzu, which is a fruit from Japan. Can't really find it too readily here. I'm sure Creation has it, and I'm sure it's really expensive. We use lemon juice, fresh pressed lemons. We also, rather than using sake in our Ponzu, we will use a little bit of bourbon. So a lighter flavor profile for this one. Very similar usage. Tastes great on noodles, dumplings, things of that nature. Soy sauce base on that. These are the soybeans that we use to make our soy sauce. They're a non-GMO Kentucky-grown soybean, about 45 miles south of Louisville. The farmer is actually growing for the Japanese soy and miso market, so it's a high-quality bean. We cook these and we reserve the water. We cook them until they're nice and soft. We'll then let them cool in our beds, and then we will roast some wheat. This is a soft red winter wheat. It's actually grown by the same farmer that grows wheat for the bourbon industry. This will be cracked into about 8 to 10 pieces, mixed with the soybeans, and then we'll introduce a yeast. We use a koji mold starter called Aspergillus oryzae, and we will mix that in with the cooked soybeans, the roasted wheat, and then we will incubate for about 3 days. This is a sample of our koji. It is a pistachio green, and this is after 3 days. You can see how airborne it is. 3 days in our incubation room. Once it's mature like this, we will make a brine out of the reserved bean water and superfine Pacific Ocean sea salt. The koji will go into the brine and become a mash, and we will age that for 12 months. When it's mature, we bring it back, we bring it over to our press, and we squeeze the soy sauce out of it. Literally 55,000 pounds of pressure per square inch, squeezing soy sauce out of the mash. We will then filter it, pasteurize it, and then bottle it, all right here in Butchertown. So these barrels you see behind me are all soy sauce mash. They'll age for a full 12 months in our warehouse here. When they're young, like say the first 6 weeks of aging, they get stirred once a day. And the reason behind that is, think of rising bread. That yeast is going to remain active for about 6 weeks, and it'll cause this mash to rise like bread, and we'll have to aerate the gases from the mash. We'll get a close-up here in a minute, but you can see bubbles popping up at the surface. There's a lot of CO2 being given off right now, much like the winemaking process, because there is fermentation going on. Our stir stick, everything here is done by hand. So we don't want anything to be too violent in the barrel. We used to mix with an electric mixer, but this method is much better for the soy sauce. It doesn't need to be stirred too much. We're just trying to aerate gases. We had this made for us out of barrel staves and an old broomstick. Actually, it's a brand new broomstick, sorry. So this is just gonna go in, and we just bring from the bottom to the top. You can tell this is a fairly young barrel because the soybeans are still kind of whole. They haven't started to denature yet. They'll eventually break down. It'll become more of a slurry. And we do open air fermentation. So you'll see in these barrels that the lids are off. That's to allow it to breathe. When we're not stirring, however, we do put like drum covers over the tops of them. So one of the other things we do at Bourbon Barrel Foods are smoked spices. My original idea was to just do soy sauce, but about 12 years ago, I had to figure out how to pay for that project and came up with bourbon smoked sea salt, bourbon smoked pepper, bourbon smoked paprika. I think now we have about 12 different items that we're smoking in here. Our smokers are Southern Pride smokers. These are designed to smoke meat. We buy them brand new, so there's never been any meat in them. These are great for this application because there's a rotisserie on the inside that kind of moves the spices through the smoke. We have one guy that manages both these smokers back here, and it's an all-day job for him. Today we have chili powder in here. The chili powder that we have here is it's blended with chilies that are grown domestically. So this comes from Las Cruces, New Mexico. Our paprika comes from the same farm. I'm gonna open these up and try and keep the thing rolling. You'll see some smoke. So the tinderbox on these smokers, they're quite large, so we can burn full staves in here. For those that don't know, bourbon barrels are made out of oak. Oak is a very rich wood to smoke with. It's a hard wood. We burn it really slowly in here. It imparts a nice, buttery, rich flavor on the spices. You can see, our oak has been saturated with bourbon for about 7 years. That's the line right there, how far the bourbon is soaked in. So with our products, we're not adding bourbon as an ingredient to a lot of them. The spices in particular, there's no bourbon added, it's bourbon smoked. So we're just using the barrel stave for that. Thank you all for coming out. You can find all our products at whatchefswant.com.